Okay, now let's move to that front leg. You can see get a good idea of how that leg is going to wind up looking like the leg I have on the original idea that I came up with for Stegosaurus. So what I want to do here is move to that front leg and start to form the shape that you see here. And what I'm going to do is move the leg a little bit forward here. So once again, just take your hands, press it forward a little bit, and this shape right down here is the dinosaur's elbow. So we're going to create that elbow. And what you do is simply just start to bend that clay like that. Just by pressing a little bit like that with your thumb, you're bending it out, and we move this clay, start to move it up. I'll take my thumb here and push a little clay here to help form that shoulder area. And under here, which would be almost like the armpit of the dinosaur on the front leg, you can see I'm just moving that clay up. And the way I'm moving this clay is very similar to what you would say it's kind of a combination. I call it the morphing, but it's also the additive and subtractive process happening at the same time, because I'm pulling clay from one area, I'm subtracting it from this lower area, and then I'm pushing it up, which is adding it to another area. And then I smooth it in to create that form. So now you can see I began to shape that. Now the other thing about the Stegosaurus, according to what the renditions, the interpretations, the Stegosaurus's legs are a little bit bowed out. They're kind of like what a bulldog has in the front of its legs, where instead of being directly under the body, they seem to be bowed out a little bit. So the way we're going to do that is I'm simply going to take my index finger here and just kind of pull that shoulder out a little bit like that. Okay? Just pull it out. Same way on the other side. Just take my thumb here and pull it out a little bit to create that feeling of being out. Now, in this area, if you find that the mass that you started with doesn't have enough clay in a certain area and you don't feel comfortable taking it away, then feel free to take another little piece of clay like this and then just adding to that area and see if that's what you needed. And in this case it helps because the shoulder would be out a little bit more like that, so there would be a little bit more mass, just the way you see that I've kind of indicated over here, like so. So there's the shoulder coming out a little more. Now the other thing I want to do, and then I'm going to again reinforce that crease behind here, which kind of helps form where the armpit would be, and then I'm going to move some of that clay down and away from that area to help keep that definition there. Okay, so like that. So we're getting pretty close. And now the other thing I want to do here is move back to the tail, because you can see that in this dinosaur, which I like the way that this is shaped. I like and it's consistent to me with a lot of the pictures that I've seen. These pictures that I got from Google, you can see that this tail is being carried much higher than in like the old designs like this. And I like that look. I think, from my knowledge of nature, this strikes me as being a much more accurate rendition of what the real animal probably had and the way he carried his tail. This is much more looking like a deadly weapon at the end here that would help to protect this dinosaur from the dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus Rex and any of the other predatory dinosaurs. So I feel really comfortable having that tail up more erect. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate that effect. And the way I'm going to do it is two ways. One, I'm going to shift a little bit of this clay from here back to the back here. And at the same time, I'm going to push the tail up. So once again, I'm going to take my thumb and I'm just going to push this tail up. All right, push it up, and then I'm going to push it up on this side, and then I'm going to smooth it over like that, and I'm going to start to flatten it a little bit. Flatten it like almost like a fish's body, where the tail is not rounded, but it has a flattened quality to it. Same on the other side. Take my finger and smooth this tail a little more so that we start to create a form similar to what I have on the other dinosaur model here. Okay, now I still have a little fatter than what I have on the other design that I've created, but you can see I'm maintaining that line that goes all along the tail, the vertebral line, and then down the back to the neck. And that's going to be a line that I use to keep the Stegosaurus's body shape with formal balance on one side to the other. Formal balance and mass. Like that. Okay, so let's see where we are here. I'm going to point that tail a little bit, smooth that out, so it's a little bit more like this guy. And of course I'm rushing along here, but you can see now that it's starting to look a little bit more like that. Now the head in this dinosaur here, the original model here, is down, so I'm going to just take the same process here, morph the head and just move it down. Just shift it down by pushing it down and then smoothing this area back, moving that clay, morphing that mass to the back here, like that. And then I'm going to move some of this for the sides back as well. Because what you can see here, if you look closely, you'll see that most of the mass, if you divide the Stegosaurus like right through the center of its body, you can see that the front part has a lot less mass than this back part. So when you're doing your sculpture, you want to make sure that the mass of your dinosaur sculpture is going to be the same. The most amount of mass should be from the middle of the dinosaur backwards, towards the back legs and the tail. And again, I'm going to adjust up a little bit. I'm going to extend the legs just a little bit to create an angle very similar to the other dinosaur that I've created here. And I'm going to do a little smoothing out here. And again, in the front, I'm going to pinch and bend a little bit of the front to form those toes. Smooth some of these forms to create that shoulder area. And once again, what's important to remember, that all of these designs are interpretations. So you could actually, based on your own instincts, after you've studied a lot of these animals and looked at a lot of other people's different ideas, you might see something that you think should be on the dinosaur. Maybe the dinosaur, the Stegosaurus, had more of a dewlap, which is a flap of skin on the under part of his throat there, like a lot of reptiles have. And also a lot of birds have a flappy skin, like a turkey, that comes down below their neck. So these are all ideas that you can incorporate, and no one can prove that your idea is wrong. As a matter of fact, your ideas might lead to some insight that will be proved out in science down the road. Okay, let's move now to just finish off a couple of little details to make it look a little bit closer to this original design that I laid out. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over this piece a little bit, check back and forth with the original design, and just smooth some of those forms so that we just get a little bit closer. We're pretty much I would say 80% of the way to where we are here. And then once I do that, then I'm going to move into the detail and show you that stage. So first of all, let me go to the head area, and I just want to make a little more similarity. And what I'm going to do there is just kind of shape this. The actual head of the Stegosaurus is kind of triangular, and I can kind of show you here in this shot from the Google pages that I printed out. And this makes it a little thinner. Some of the pictures I've seen make it just a little bit more triangular, but you can see it has an elongated, almost like an alligator, but don't make it quite that long. I'm assuming that there's a lot more meat in this area here around the eyes and around where the ears would be, but it's a little bit more triangular. And most of the representations that you see when people fill out the flesh on the Stegosaurus, it has a little bit more of a mass that's similar to what I have here. So, you know, check the skeletal structure whenever you have that available. If you see pictures of that, take a look at it. But also take a good look at the interpretations, because a lot of artists have actually studied the musculature that goes over those bones that would show you how it actually fills out in flesh. So that's what I've done here, and that's why you can see the head is a little bit more triangular like that. So I'm going to do the same on this one. And what I want to do is I just want to push a little bit of that clay up here towards the top to make that a little bit more of a delineation right there that you can see. And then just kind of smooth it forward like that, and maybe move a little bit back a little bit off the side of the face like that to create a little bit more of a head shape like that. All the time pushing, pulling the clay, morphing it, adding and subtracting at the same time. Then if you find that there needs just to be a little bit more, or if you find that you want to try it with a little bit more in the back of the head, maybe you had some heavier plates here, then you can add on a little amount of clay using a tool like that. Just kind of work it in, and then go back to using your fingers again, smooth that in so you get a feel for what that form is going to look like, and taper it a little bit towards the front. Now on the Stegosaurus, it's hard to see here, but what you might be able to see is I've made the front of the mouth a lot like a short beak, or like the upper mandible of a upper part of the mouth of a turtle. And that's what appears to be the case in most of the interpretations of the Stegosaurus. It has a little beak-like mouth in the front. And remember, these are herbivores, so you don't get to see whether they had teeth inside the mouth in this stage at all. So, alright, so that's the head part. And like I said, I'm going to move on to this piece in a moment to show you the detailing, because I've already done a lot just to speed things up. But I'm going to go back here for a second and just smooth this out a little bit to make it a little bit more like that, this other design. So I'm going to work on the neck area. I'm going to work from the head backwards a little bit here. And I'm going to make the neck a little bit flattened, similar to the way I've made the tail. So I'm going to move some of that clay down from the sides just a little bit. Now I don't want to make it real flat like a fish's body, but just to give it a little bit more length underneath the neck coming down, which would be natural. Gravity would tend to pull any extra fleshy skin downwards. I'm going to turn it over here and just smooth that so that I get a nice smooth form just using my fingers. Like that. Okay. And then on the top here, the same thing on this other side. I want to make it very formal in design. I want the right side of the neck to look very similar to the left side of the neck. Smoothing that like that. And once again, on this design here, if you take a look, I've actually added a little extra because I want to create a little bit more sense of the folds of skin hanging down. So the way you can do that is just to take a little piece of clay like this, roll it out. Very similar to the way we would put the wrinkles on the side of the animal. This time we're going to just put it along the bottom part of the neck where the skin would hang down. And we can imagine that perhaps in the younger animals that might not be apparent, but maybe as the animal gets older, or particularly in the male of the species, it might have a little bit more skin hanging down under its neck, perhaps even colored. Okay, so you can see from the front view where I'm going with this on the neck, and I'll turn it to the side so that you can see that we're forming that flap that's coming down like that to the side. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check these legs again, and in this case I see that I want to move this leg out a little more, and remember the way we do that, we just simply put our thumb inside and just kind of push out with your other finger, your other index finger here, and then just once again clarify where your shoulder is, just running your finger up like that, moving that clay up, over, and sometimes backwards, and then back the other way to smooth over any little lines that you may have created that you don't really want. Let me check against this again, and I'm going to make this a little bit more smooth down. And I'm going to pinch down here at the bottom of the foot to create the foot where the toes will go. And smooth again a little bit. Then I'm going to check this back leg, and I want to move it back just a little more and smooth it. Smooth these forms as I go along, a little bit in the thorax area and the abdomen, chest and stomach. Pinching, pushing a little clay like that, and then smoothing it over again. Let's take another look here, and I'm going to be a little bit more delineation up the back here. Pulling that clay, morphing it back. Forming the heel in the back here is this little area here that's pointed out. And moving it around. And you can see here we've already pinched that area, and that looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave that alone for now. Smooth that a little more. Just smooth these forms. And I'm going to go down to the tail here, and I'm going to make it nice and pointed. And like I said before, the tail we want to have a shape similar to a fish's body, so we can pull clay down from the center of the side of the tail on this side, and same, we could put it up on the top. This will create a little bit of a ridge, as you can see, nice line, ridge along the center line there. Smooth that out nicely. You can see the tail's bending a little bit as I do this, but we're going to straighten that back out. So make it nice and smooth here. And then I'm going to straighten it. I'm going to go back to the other side and do the same. Get a nice shape there. Underneath we want to do the same. We want to push that clay down, meet the center line, kind of squeeze it together there, forming that center line of the underneath of the tail. And then just smooth it over like that. Alright, and push it up here, and I'll show you from the side. So it's going to look like that. Alright, so we're getting pretty close to this other design here. So now what I'm going to do, I think you have a pretty good sense of how we arrived at these different forms, and you can go back over the videos and review them if you need to. And of course you can always email me if there's a part that seems confusing to you. Email me and I'll go over it specifically in maybe another video so that I help clarify to you exactly what I was talking about.